as hard, or even if it's harder. I mean, everybody has different levels and how it affects them.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're willing to be vulnerable and tell us that there are times where you just break down. But
and that's a huge part of the healing process.
Oh, it is. But the fact that you also have pushed through and you want to be that example for your kids, I mean, I think that's awesome for everybody to hear. I think you're an amazing person.
Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I definitely have my shortcomings, but I feel like that I try to do my best with all the circumstances that have happened, and I'm learning. So I think that's a process that will never end if people are willing to, but people have to be willing to do that. I think that we all kind of naturally have pride in us, and I'm definitely one of those people, and I've had to learn to, that some things are going to be hard, but that doesn't mean that I should give up. It just means that I should learn what my new strengths are and find those out and try to accomplish what I can now. So
yeah. So you'd mentioned that you're currently doing a PhD as well.
So I've got a master's degree, and then I'm just barely starting a PhD, and so they're usually 4 to 6 years. So it's even with all of this going on and everything you've been through, you're still trying to find time to educate.
Trying to learn.
That was one of my goals, was just to keep going, to keep pushing, and to. Once I got the master's degree, I said, I don't know exactly when I'll finish this PhD. It's a long goal, but eventually I'm going to finish a PhD and accomplish the goals that I had pre-tumor, if that makes sense. So even though it is, and I don't have to be successful, I don't feel like I have to do that, because things are different than before the tumor.
Sure.
So you're just using that as a personal challenge, kind of. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I do that I think is another thing. You said, what inspires me besides my kids? Like, I always am trying to push myself to see what I can do.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people don't do that because they're afraid of failing.
Yeah.
And I used to be that way. To be honest, I've been that way a lot of my life. Like, I think most people are. But
do you think that the cancer made you realize something deep down, that you didn't necessarily have to fail? You could accomplish anything.
I think I learned, honestly, like when I graduated UVU with the 3.93, so with my bachelor's degree, I think I learned by doing that, because it scared the heck out of me to start school after my degree, and it should have. Like, I actually had to spend all day studying to get the grades that I would have got previously. Like, it was a ton of work, and I'm not exaggerating. I had to do that, because I was scared that I wouldn't be able to retain the material, and by studying all day, I'd usually get A's. So by accomplishing, not just graduating, but doing it quickly and getting a 3.93, I realized, not that I can do anything, because I realize how hard that was.
Sure.
And I did push hard. It wasn't just like the average guy that just went and got the 3.93 by just putting the average amount of time.
Yeah.
But I realized that, I won't accomplish what I want to in life if I don't fail sometimes, because that means that I'm not trying new things. I'm not trying to see what my strengths are now. I'm not pushing hard.
I think that's where you grow also. It's from failure.
Definitely, and I've had many of those moments. I won't dive into them, but I put myself out there, and I think that's why I've been able to accomplish a lot of things, even with not just putting myself out there, but I put myself out there, and then I do my best, and I work hard, and I think that's why I'm in the spot that I am now, and done some good things in life. So
wow, that's awesome. You have overcome a lot of things. In terms of what makes you most thankful about this whole situation? Because I mean, you could look at it two different ways, right? You could look at it like, this really sucks, all that kind of stuff. But you seem like you're optimistic. So
I have looked at it both ways. To be honest, so I'll let you finish the question, but I feel like you're getting at what makes me look at it the way I do now instead of the way that I. What's in there inside of you that's.
What made you switch the flip
the switch? Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Don't get me wrong. I still have days where I'm that shouldn't have happened.
Sure.
And that's affected me greatly in a negative way. But then I also look at, I wouldn't have learned. I'm a person that kind of has a belief that we go through what we need to go through, and it's up to us to kind of decide how we're going to handle it and learn from it. And I kind of feel like I'm a stubborn guy. I feel like I might have had to go through more than the average person because I wouldn't learn certain things any other way because I'm kind of like, I just went at things and then like I usually excelled at them because I went at them. And so like, I feel like I learned that like I couldn't just trust myself, that I had to kind of to lean on others and stuff like that, where if I didn't go through some major things, I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't learn to do stuff like that because that's just, I'm just have the personality that I'm just going to go do it. And then I do it, if that makes sense. So
yeah. Wow. I had a couple other questions that I want to ask you. What is something today, like what is something that you can't go a day without, like without doing, you know what I mean? Like if you have a specific routine and you're like, I have to get this done in order for me to be.
And I don't think there's anything besides eating and sleeping that I can't go a day without, to be honest. But what I really enjoy doing and what keeps me kind of sane, I feel like, is exercising, running and lifting weights, and just playing basketball is one of my favorite things. I haven't done it forever. Like I need to get more back into it because I know that just keeps me feeling good. Yeah. It's something I just naturally excel. Like I actually, in a practice once, I hit 42 threes. It's just something that comes more naturally to me. Obviously I have to work hard at, but like,
that's in a row.
Yeah, in a
that's
row.
crazy.
Well, just before you showed up, Shane, he was draining the threes like in the gym.
Well, I haven't shot a basketball in over a year, so that's. I told him like I finally made. I think I made like 6 or 7 in a row at one point. So, but when you're 5'8", so I'm a smaller guy, like, and I can't jump worth beans. I was telling this guy because he can jump really good. Like, you have to be fast and you have to be able to shoot. And like I mentioned before, I'm super competitive, so like. I wanted to not just be good at basketball, like I wanted to be the best, like I do.
Yeah.
And that was the same thing with track and cross country, which I really excel at. And so when you're 5'8", you have to do that, and you have to be able to shoot. I compare myself to, I'm obviously not their level, but like I shoot. People say, "Oh, you're Lillard or you're Jimmer or you're Curry," because I shoot way beyond the 3-point line because. And so that's just something
no one's guarding you back there. Yeah.
Well, and you can always get an open shot if you're shooting from 40 feet because people just don't go up and guard you there. So I'm just like, okay, I'll go take it if you leave me open, I'll go take it, and I'll make it half the time. So you can't go without some type of activity.
Yeah.
Whether it's lifting, running,
and usually, to be honest, it's more running than lifting.
Sure.
Okay.
But what's interesting is, so I go through spurts because I hate running when it's hot. And then because of all the chemo and radiation, it actually hurts my like lungs and stuff when it's colder if I run a really long distance.
Sure.
And so like I have to starting up if I haven't ran, because I hate running in the cold. So and it hurts more now because of the chemo and stuff, like to run when it's cold. So I go through spurts like when it's cold where I don't run for a long period of time. And then starting up is actually really, really hard for me because not only am I out of shape, but I know that it is not as easy as it used to be, like because I got to the point where I was running 4 minutes, so like it's crazy. And when I do things, I know how good I was, so I shouldn't do this, but I always try to compare myself pre-tumor. And so like
that's hard.
It's hard for me to just go out and run and do a casual 3 miles at 7-minute mile pace. I want to go out and run it in 17 flat, or I want to go run a 4.5-minute mile when I haven't ran for months, and you just can't do that. So.
That makes me think of how many people that are runners we've had on this show.
Oh, a lot.
And
they use it as their therapy.
Yes, and that's the main point I'm trying to get to, John, is that they use that for therapy. So there must be something in that, like in that kind of running that helps you out to realize that you can do anything.
So I haven't actually mentioned this, and I won't dive into it too much, but I actually have pretty bad anxiety. Most people wouldn't know this because I just go out and do things. But like, I didn't even know I had this, to be honest. So my dad has severe anxieties, and I mentioned he's got some 3 conflicting blood diseases, and he gets vertigo. Like, so I didn't know I had it because I'd always compare myself to my dad, and then nothing was very stressful in high school for me because things came easy. And so obviously I've had some abnormal stresses where I think most people would experience a little bit of anxiety and depression even if you don't have it. But like,
yeah, sure.
But I definitely, it's something I definitely have, and I know I have it now because of. I mean, I just know I have it because I've had some harder things, and I've seen how it just stresses me out.
Yeah,
and so,
sure.
So, that's made things harder for me. But what I've learned is that just that can't stop you from doing stuff. Like you're gonna have some anxiety in life if you're pushing yourself, and so But running, to mention that, is the one thing where, I mean, I'm still going to have moments where I'm stressed, but while I'm doing it, like I usually go running in the morning. It just starts my day out right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I just feel, it does. It gives you just a better,
nice, cool feeling. Air and.
Yeah, it just gives me I feel more energetic. Because honestly, when you're depressed or you have anxiety, the hardest thing is to just get up some days.
Yeah.
Yeah. You feel fatigued. You feel,
especially when
mentally exhausted.
Especially when you've gone through, and again, like other people have gone through hard things, but some of these major things, like when I was going through chemo for long, there's some days obviously I just didn't want to get up, but I'd make myself walk throughout the hospital 5 times because it would just make me feel like I wasn't dead. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So yeah, I'm Shane, you nailed it when you said like a lot of people on this podcast have definitely. Yeah. It seems like that's like an ongoing theme.
Yep.
That running is a major therapy for people.
Well, it actually physically, and I'm sure you know this, being a health guy, like it does something for your brain. It does. Releases. Yeah. Yeah,
you get a lot of different neurotransmitters that are going to release and everything, and you increase your production of dopamine and serotonin and endorphins and
for me too, this is a unique thing it does for me. So my eyes. So after the tumor, because of the pressure, I think I mentioned the pressure of the tumor was how my tumor was diagnosed, the pressure on my eyes. So I actually had to do, I did 2 years of chemo, 6 months of radiation, but I also did surgery to reduce the swelling because there was a lot of, it just swelled up a lot because of all the pressure going on for years.
Yeah.
And so my eyes trained themselves, because I saw everything blurry, to not work together so that I wouldn't see things blurry. And so they're always I've got really bad nerve damage and I've got constant eye pain. And so running actually helps my eyes a lot, having that extra oxygen in there, whatever. It makes them so it makes them not hurt as much besides the other positive effects. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What makes you feel the most accomplished these days?
That's a good question. I'd say what makes me feel the most accomplished is just knowing that I'm doing my best. It used to be being number one at everything. Yeah. Because that was really my goal, or at least one of the best. And now I realize that's, and I'm not saying I'm giving up and saying, well, things just aren't.
Well, you're just doing your personal best.
Your personal best. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I realize there's some limitations now, and I still realize my personal best is still pretty dang good.
Yeah.
But it's just not
your best.
Yeah, it's not what it was, but that doesn't mean that I can't go out and have a great life.
Yep. Sure.
And honestly, like, I wouldn't, and I don't know if this is why I went through this, but like, I wouldn't have met my wife. Like, I wouldn't have married my wife. I wouldn't have dated my wife if I didn't go through all this, because I used to just only date the cheerleader type girl, just because I was the athlete, the cheerleader. It's kind of just, it's what I did. And my wife's just not that. She's super awesome and has like a ton of qualities that I love, but she is not, she hates sports. Like, I always would date girls that like to be active, and they're just small little cheerleader girls, because that's just the things that I like to be active, and I just never would have given certain people a chance. And I think without going through all that stuff, that's one thing that wouldn't have happened. So even though the tumor sucks, like, if I was just having that just so that I could meet my wife and have the kids I have now, then I guess that was,
wow.
Does that make sense? So that's one way. That's one way to look at, like, that's a way to look at it positive, because that really is. I'm not exaggerating that at all. Like, I just. And I love my wife to death, but I wouldn't have even given her a chance before all this. And that just shows that I wasn't mature enough to.
Sure. It's interesting, the things that we go through to get the lessons that we need to get.
Yeah.
And all those out there listening, you don't have to go through such hard things in order to get those lessons.
Please don't.
Yeah. You know?
Please be more mature than me. So that
and most of us aren't willfully trying to get that to go through the hard things in order to receive some type of new wisdom. Yep. But we gain wisdom as we grow, and through all the experiences that we have, and it's an amazing thing what you've gone through, Cam.
Yeah, I always say about my brain injury that I wouldn't wish it upon anyone else, but I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to learn from this brain injury.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's the same thing that I would. There's no way, and I wouldn't wish, if there was a way that I could not have to go that and still meet my wife. Like, I just wouldn't wish it on anyone. But the things you can make, those hardest things in your life, things that you can at least learn from. It's not saying that you want it to happen, because I still wouldn't have wanted it to happen.